So I stand before you mere hours before the precise moment of my birth. Your birthdays are like our own personal new year, and the new year is typically a time for reflection, time to look back on your achievements and what you've learned. Now, a full speech on my achievement might be a little bit arrogant, so I figured I would share with you some things I've learned on my 19 years on this planet. So first is the big one. Carpe diem. Seize the day. I admit I'm not always brilliant at this, but it could be a big thing. It could be, that plant course over the summer sounds really interesting. I'm going to go and apply for that. It could be something small. It could be when the vice president's just giving a speech dressed as a monkey, you say, why the hell not? Now, as I said, I'm not always brilliant at this. Sometimes I'll think, it's not worth it, or I'll do it tomorrow. It can wait. But that's the other thing about the new year. It is a time to look back and reflect on your shortcomings as much as your successes. And humanity is a fundamentally social creature. I'm reminded of a song lyric here. Now, given it's a female singer, I won't talk to you with my attentive female singing voice because I suspect it would sound like grating a dog. But the lyric goes, I don't want to rule the world alone, none of us can make it on our own. Cooperation is key to success. I'll give you two examples of this. The first is rock skills. A unit in geology where you have to look at rocks and identify the minerals. It's not practicing headbanging, much as I hope. Anyway, I did this. Some of these rocks I had studied on my own, and some of them were on my course mates. I can categorically say that when I worked among my course mates, I infinitely preferred it. Sure, I may have worked quicker on my own, but I was more certain and it was definitely more enjoyable when I worked with other people. If we take a less boring example, Pokemon. Before I came to uni, I really enjoyed playing Pokemon. I got through games, did fair enough, but something was missing because there's quite a lot of Pokemon that's actually based on the more social aspect of things. Now at uni, I'm part of the Pokemon Trainer Society and enjoy battling, trading, discussions of strategy, various stuff like that with the other members. Humanity is social, so embrace that. Now the next thing occurred to me as I was looking at the motions for the union's AMM. I looked at them and thought, well, I could see the ideals behind them, but either they weren't really practical or they wouldn't change a thing. Ideals and principles are important, yes, but the real world isn't ideal, so you must always work within that. If we take the example of the environment, okay? People say, we should use biofuels because they're carbon neutral. Okay, what about the time taken to grow the crops, the fuel for the machinery, the chemicals needed to grow fertilizers and pesticides and stuff to get a decent yield, and most importantly of all, the land you take from food production, which as the population grows, could prove catastrophic. Okay, what about reforestation? It's great. You plant a tree, it grows, takes in CO2 and photosynthesizes. It's brilliant. Okay, trees take a bloody long time to mature, right? Trees are also very big, so again you have the land problem. You also have the problem that we make a forest, we make an ecosystem. Animals will move in, and animals don't photosynthesize. They respire, which releases CO2. They die and decompose, which releases CO2. So if you ignore the time and the land issue, at the very least, you haven't changed a thing with regards to CO2, and at worst, you actually exacerbated the situation. Ideals and principles are important, but pragmatism is essential. Now this next thing is something I have very, very success with, and that's knowing when to keep your mouth shut. Now, mostly I'm better when it's more minor things where the consequences aren't too severe. So an example of this would be 2 weeks ago when the president said, what do we do for table topics? And I foolishly opened my mouth and said the word ducks. Yeah, that was fun. I had to come up with 12 subtopics under the group of ducks. Yeah, that was fun. Perhaps a more successful example would be in a lecture the other week, where the lecturer mentioned saber-toothed tigers. I nearly exploded. There is no such thing as a saber-toothed tiger. Tigers and saber-tooths are distinct groups within the family of cats. Some things described as saber-tooth aren't even cats, despite the morphological similarities. One of them is marsupial for crying out loud. I nearly exploded, but I didn't, because I figured getting angry in the middle of a lecture and having an argument with the lecturer probably wasn't a good idea. So, knowing when to keep your mouth shut is a vital life skill. Discretion is very much the better part of valor. Although, as a general rule, the more friendly you are with a person, strangely, the more you can get away with arguing and taking the piss. It's kind of weird like that. Now, the final thing I would like to talk about is endings. All things in life must come to an end, but an ending needn't be cripplingly sad. Yes, it is sad when things just end, but it's a chance to celebrate what was. I was a huge fan of the Lego Bionicle series. I followed it right from its start in 2001 all the way through to its conclusion in 2010. Watching the story grow from a small, simple story of 6 heroes uniting against a mighty enemy. Watching that grow into a huge, sprawling universe with multiple factions, alliances, betrayals, ancient rivalries, and a truly fantastic antagonist. And when it came down to the end, it boiled down to that simple fight of the light against the darkness, just as it had begun. Perfect ending. Now, of course, it isn't just toy lines and stories which have to go on to end. People do too. When someone dies, yes, it is very sad. But you shouldn't focus on the death. Focus on celebrating the life that was. Yes, it is sad, but mourning the fact that they're gone won't help. Celebrate the fact they lived their life and move on with that memory. An ending shouldn't be cripplingly sad. Now, on that note, it is time to end the speech, but I'd like to leave you with some of the wisest words I know. Always look on the bright side of life.
Would you like to take a question?
If anyone has any questions, I will go and take them. Go on.
Would you recommend killing all the animals to stop them?
I would recommend not planting a really very big forest in the first place, because that will start a problem and it's not particularly helpful. So,
But what about animals that are still alive? Would you recommend?
animals that are still alive, the ecosystem currently is in a delicate balance, so I'm not really in favour of screwing with it. You have a question?
You sing the rest of Always Look on the Bright Side of Life, please.
I cannot remember all of it off the top of my head, unfortunately.
Somebody bring out the phone.
Next week, I promise I will, no, some other time. Next week, I will learn the entirety of Always Look at the Bright Side of Life. I will only come up here and sing it for you.
I'll bring my guitar.
Bring it up. Brilliant. Any questions that don't involve me singing in public?
Where did you get the onesie?
Primark, it was £12. It was for
Yeah.
biology social. It was like the first one, and we were grouping off with most societies will have a kind of families thing where they pair off, where they group first years off with second and third years. So in the biology one, each family had an animal. Ours was a chimpanzee. So I thought, buy a monkey onesie and cut the tail off.
Chimpanzees not have tails.
Chimpanzees do not have tails.
Yeah.
What's the difference between a chimpanzee and a monkey?
They don't have tails.
In terms of the...
Well, chimps are apes. They're a distinct group.
Yeah, what's the physical differences?
Physical differences, yeah. So it'll be things like facial structure, hands, feet, again, the look of the tail, that kind of thing. Any other questions?
Well, I think what the person who says it was asked all questions have been burning in our minds.
So that's what's the difference between a chimpanzee and a monkey.
Yeah, because that's the first thing anyone thinks about when I talk about with my speech is what's the difference between a monkey and a chimp.
Oh yeah, I heard this random thing. It was with metros. It's probably wrong, but that biofuels, if you use them in plain aviation fuel, got a 10% greater chance of freezing in midair.
Yeah,
What's the
fuels.
initial
Is that right?
I don't know about that, but I assume if we were to transfer to biofuels, they would develop something specifically for use of aviation because of that great purpose.
or just insulate the engine?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This is actually about your life. We should ask more questions
Okay.
about you.
I'm talking about life lessons here, and you're worried about aviation fuel. I feel.
Okay, what is your biggest regret in your life?
Being a massive coward sometimes. I said, like, with Seize the Day, I'm not always brilliant at it. And there have been times where I thought, "Ooh, should I?" And then I usually are on the side of no. So, I guess they're generally the biggest things you regret and things you don't do. So I would say that's what
Including genocide?
Huh?
Who's your favourite Pokemon?
So many to choose from. It's like 649.
Okay.
What's the
Oh,
highest?
no, they're only 150.
We only
I'm
count
on
the
today.
we only count 151 and possibly
Yeah.
missing those.
Oh, boring like that. There's 649, and some of them are crap and some of them are good. This is like the first 150, some of them are crap and some of them are good. Anyway.
Anyway,
enough on
feedback. Has anybody got any feedback?